Hi everyone. Detective Lefebre speaks. The call came in on a cold autumn evening. A neighbor reported hearing shouting followed by a loud crash from the home of Ethan Crow, a well-known local businessman. When officers arrived, they found the front door ajar. Inside was chaos. Furniture was overturned, a vase lay shattered on the floor, and Ethan's lifeless body was sprawled in the living room. He had been stabbed multiple times, the frenzied nature of the wounds pointing to rage or desperation. There was no sign of forced entry, a detail that immediately caught my attention. Ethan likely knew his killer, or the person had a way to enter undetected. The crime scene wasn't entirely devoid of clues, but each seemed to raise more questions than answers. A partial bloody shoe print was found near the door, its trajectory suggesting the killer had fled in haste. The print, made by a men's-sized tin sneaker, matched a common brand, one that wouldn't immediately narrow our search. The kitchen sink showed traces of hastily washed blood, suggesting the killer had tried to clean themselves before leaving. In the victim's hand was a torn piece of fabric, likely ripped during a struggle. Nearby, a shattered whiskey glass and a toppled chair hinted at a confrontation that had turned violent. Ethan's phone, found on the floor near his body, revealed one final, unanswered call made shortly before his death. It was to Alex Winters, one half of a pair of twin brothers who were business partners with Ethan. This single call would set the tone for the investigation, one that would delve deep into the murky waters of family loyalty and deceit. Alex and Eric Winters were a fixture in the community. Identical twins with identical lives, they were known for their close bond and shared roles in their successful contracting business. Ethan Crow, the victim, had been their silent partner, providing financial backing that helped the company expand. But as I began digging into their relationship, I uncovered fractures beneath the polished exterior. Both Alex and Eric claimed they had been working late at a construction site across town on the night of the murder. They presented a united front, each reinforcing the other's alibi with calm precision. Yet the synchronization in their statements felt almost rehearsed, as though they had prepared for this moment. Physically, the twins were indistinguishable. Both wore their hair cropped short, favored casual workwear, and shared a preference for a specific brand of sneakers, the same brand and size as the bloody shoe print found at the scene. Even their mannerisms were eerily alike. This posed a significant challenge. Traditional witness accounts or surveillance footage would struggle to differentiate between them. The twins' reputation for loyalty to one another became both a strength and a weakness in the investigation. Their synchronized stories created a seemingly unbreakable wall, but this unity also raised suspicions. If one was guilty, would the other cover for him? Or were they both complicit? These questions became central to the case as I delved deeper into their lives. Ethan Crow's role as a silent partner had been pivotal to the twins' business success, but it came with strings attached. As I combed through financial records and conducted interviews with colleagues, a clear motive began to emerge. Ethan had grown dissatisfied with the direction of the company and had recently threatened to withdraw his investment. This would have been disastrous for the Winters brothers, as much of their capital was tied up in long-term projects that depended on Ethan's backing. Witnesses described escalating tensions in the weeks leading up to the murder. Ethan was reportedly unhappy with Alex's aggressive expansion plans, which he felt were too risky. Alex, in turn, was said to have clashed with Ethan during meetings, accusing him of micromanaging and undermining their vision for the business. Eric, while less confrontational, often played the role of peacemaker, diffusing arguments before they could spiral out of control. Yet, cracks were visible in this arrangement. Several employees noted that Alex had been increasingly short-tempered and dismissive of Ethan's input, while Eric had grown withdrawn, as though distancing himself from the conflict. On more than one occasion, Alex had been overheard threatening to take matters into his own hands if Ethan didn't step back. These dynamics painted a complex picture. Alex appeared to be the aggressor, the one most likely to lash out if pushed too far. But Eric's quiet demeanor raised its own questions. Was he simply a bystander, or could his loyalty to Alex have made him an accomplice? The motive was clear, but the roles of the twins remained murky. Would you like me to continue diving deeper into forensic challenges, psychological dynamics, and the pivotal moments that cracked this case open? The identical nature of the twins posed an enormous challenge from the start. With both men sharing the same DNA, traditional forensic tools such as blood, hair, or skin samples could not distinguish between them. This biological similarity created an investigative minefield where the usual methods to pinpoint a suspect were rendered useless. The murder weapon, a kitchen knife, was recovered from a dumpster 2 blocks from Ethan's home. It bore partial fingerprints, but they were smudged and indistinct. Even if usable, both Alex and Eric's fingerprints would be virtually identical in general pattern, making definitive identification difficult without additional context. The partial shoe print found near the scene became a critical focus. Both twins wore identical sneakers, but close examination revealed subtle, patterns unique to each individual. A forensic podiatrist was brought in to analyze the print. The expert determined the shoe print had specific pressure points indicative of someone who favored their right foot, an observation consistent with Alex's slight limp due to an old sports injury. It wasn't definitive evidence, but it was a crack in the wall of identicality. Additionally, traces of Ethan's blood were found in the twins' shared truck. Both claimed they had visited Ethan's house earlier that week for a business discussion, providing a plausible explanation for the blood transfer. But the presence of the blood wasn't just limited to the floor mat. It was also smeared on the underside of the steering wheel. This suggested someone had driven the vehicle immediately after the crime, possibly with bloodied hands. Despite these findings, forensic evidence alone wasn't enough to break the case. The physical similarities between the twins continued to blur the lines, and we needed to dig deeper into their psychology and actions leading up to the murder. Identical twins often share not just physical traits but behavioral tendencies, yet no two people are completely the same. To unravel this case, I enlisted the help of a criminal psychologist to dissect the subtle differences between Alex and Eric. Their personalities, while complementary, revealed distinct dynamics. Alex was the dominant twin, outspoken, ambitious, and prone to quick bursts of anger. He often took charge during meetings and was more confrontational in both personal and professional settings. Eric, on the other hand, was quieter and more reserved, often stepping in to mediate conflicts. Colleagues described him as the voice of reason, someone who de-escalated arguments rather than stoking them. Interrogations revealed these contrasts in full force. Alex's frustration became evident when questioned. His responses were clipped, defensive, and at times aggressive. He visibly struggled to keep his composure when I pressed him on inconsistencies in their timeline, such as why his credit card had been used near Ethan's house shortly before the murder. Eric's demeanor, by contrast, was cool and controlled. He carefully avoided answering questions directly, instead offering vague, rehearsed responses that mirrored Alex's. However, his calmness raised a different red flag. Was it genuine detachment, or was he hiding something? The psychological profiling revealed another critical detail. Alex had a history of impulsive decisions, while Eric was calculated and methodical. If they had acted together, it seemed plausible Alex might have been the instigator while Eric orchestrated the cover-up. This division of roles provided a potential framework for understanding how the crime had unfolded. With forensics providing only circumstantial evidence, we turned to surveillance footage. Security cameras near Ethan's neighborhood were reviewed in painstaking detail. Late on the night of the murder, a vehicle matching the description of the twins' truck was spotted driving toward Ethan's house. While the footage was too grainy to identify the driver, a timestamp on a nearby gas station receipt provided a crucial lead. The receipt showed a purchase made with Alex's credit card just 30 minutes before the estimated time of death. The gas station's surveillance footage confirmed the truck's presence, but the driver remained obscured. However, the body language of the individual stepping out of the vehicle was telling. The person's gait showed a slight limp, consistent with Alex's old injury. This placed Alex near the scene and began to unravel the twins' alibi. When confronted with this evidence, Alex insisted he had lent his card to Eric that evening, a claim Eric vehemently denied. This contradiction marked the first crack in their synchronized story. The investigation also uncovered another lead. A neighbor's smart doorbell camera captured the faint sound of voices near Ethan's home around the time of the murder. The audio wasn't clear enough to identify who was speaking, but analysis by an acoustic specialist revealed it wasn't just one voice, it was two. This reinforced the theory that both twins might have been involved, though their exact roles remained unclear. The twins had presented a nearly impenetrable defense up to this point, an alibi that relied on their shared timeline, their synchronized testimonies, and their uncanny ability to mirror each other's behavior. Breaking their defense required not only overwhelming evidence, but also psychological strategies to exploit any fractures in their unity. We decided to use the classic divide and conquer approach. Alex and Eric were placed in separate interrogation rooms, and the timing of their questioning was carefully staggered to ensure they had no chance to align their stories further. Each was presented with different pieces of evidence at varying intervals, creating an atmosphere of uncertainty. Alex's interrogation was the first to yield results. Confronted with the gas station receipt tied to his credit card, Alex's frustration boiled over. "That doesn't mean anything," he snapped. "Eric could have used my card. How would I know?" His defensiveness raised immediate red flags. When we pressed him about the bloody steering wheel in their truck, Alex began to stumble, his responses becoming increasingly contradictory. "I wasn't in the truck that night. Or maybe I was earlier," he muttered, his agitation mounting. Eric, on the other hand, maintained a cool and calculated demeanor. When shown the same evidence, he deflected smoothly, claiming, "I wasn't near Ethan's house, and I can't speak for Alex. You should ask him." However, his vague responses and refusal to directly contradict Alex created a subtle divide between the two. The synchronized front they had worked so hard to maintain was beginning to unravel. The most significant breakthrough came when I presented Alex with the neighbor's doorbell recording, which captured two voices near the crime scene. "If Eric wasn't there, whose voice is this?" I asked. Alex hesitated, visibly shaken. "I don't know," he muttered, his confidence faltering for the first time. Eric, questioned about the same audio, was equally evasive but inadvertently contradicted Alex by suggesting maybe it was someone else who came after. These inconsistencies, while minor on the surface, created a fissure in their defense. It was clear the twins were no longer perfectly aligned, and we had found the pressure points to exploit. Breaking Alex's composure was the key to cracking the case. After hours of questioning, he finally confessed. His voice was shaky, and his demeanor had shifted from defensive to defeated. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," he began, staring at the table. According to Alex, he had gone to Ethan's house that evening to confront him about the business dispute. Ethan's threats to pull his investment had left Alex furious, and he claimed he wanted to set things straight. The confrontation escalated quickly. Alex described Ethan mocking him, calling his business decisions reckless. "He wouldn't listen," Alex said, his voice trembling. "He kept pushing, and I snapped." In a fit of rage, Alex grabbed a knife from the kitchen and attacked Ethan, stabbing him multiple times. "It all happened so fast," he added. "I didn't even realize what I was doing until it was over." Alex then admitted to calling Eric immediately after the murder. "I didn't know what to do," he said. "I needed Eric to help me think." Eric, as Alex described it, was initially shocked but agreed to help cover up the crime. He drove Alex away from the scene, helped dispose of the knife, and coached Alex on what to say if questioned. When Eric was confronted with Alex's confession, he finally admitted his role. While he denied knowing about Alex's intent beforehand, he confessed to assisting in the cover-up. "I was just trying to protect my brother," Eric said, his calm exterior cracking under the weight of the admission. "I didn't think it through. I just didn't want him to go to jail." The legal proceedings against the twins were complex, as their involvement in the crime differed significantly. Alex faced first-degree murder charges, while Eric was charged as an accessory after the fact. The prosecution's case against Alex was airtight, supported by his confession, the forensic evidence, and the surveillance footage placing him near the scene. The prosecution argued that Alex's actions were premeditated, pointing to the escalating tensions between him and Ethan and the deliberate nature of the attack. Alex's defense team attempted to argue that the murder was a crime of passion, emphasizing his emotional state during the confrontation. They sought to reduce the charge to manslaughter, portraying Alex as someone pushed to his breaking point by Ethan's provocations. However, the jury found this argument unconvincing, given the evidence of Alex's attempts to cover his tracks. Eric's trial was less contentious, but still significant. The prosecution painted him as a willing accomplice who had deliberately hindered the investigation by disposing of evidence and providing a false alibi. Eric's defense focused on his familial loyalty, arguing that his actions, while misguided, were driven by an emotional desire to protect his brother rather than criminal intent. The jury found Alex guilty of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Eric, who had cooperated during the investigation and expressed remorse, received a reduced sentence of 5 years for his role as an accessory. This case left a lasting impression on me, not just because of its complexity, but because of the unique challenges posed by the identical suspects. The twins' shared DNA and synchronized behavior created obstacles at every turn, but their psychological differences ultimately became their undoing. Alex's impulsive nature and Eric's calculated attempts to shield him revealed a dynamic that, while loyal, was far from flawless. The case also highlighted the power of persistence and adaptability in investigations. By focusing on subtle details, such as gait analysis, voice recordings, and psychological profiling, we were able to unravel a seemingly unbreakable alibi. In the end, it wasn't just forensic evidence that solved the case. It was understanding the human elements of loyalty, guilt, and desperation. This case serves as a stark reminder that even the closest bonds can fracture under pressure, and that no two people, not even twins, are truly identical. If you like this story and want to watch more stories by Detective Lefebre, please subscribe to my channel and leave a comment below. Remember, the truth is in details.